Which, by the way, we should probably set the room and not the room that we're talking about, but kind of let's bring people in here. So we are here to talk about the room this week. For those of you who have been looking at our announcements and some of the things that we put out there, the pictures, the moving pictures, otherwise called movies, we're talking to Greg Sestero later this week. But before we get there, we wanted to break down one of his most well-known movies, 2003's The Room, directed, written, financed, pretty much everything done by Tommy Wiseau himself. And you might have heard a voice you're not familiar with. That is my brother. His name is Nate. Nate, welcome to the show. It's your first time.
Happy to be here, I think. I listened to some episodes, and you get some of our childhood stories wrong. So I just haven't been able to here to correct them for you. And I don't want to say anything because it's your show, and I don't want to disappoint any of your listeners. You've built up this robust, feelings about you. So
don't worry. The 9 people that have been tuning in every week, they're probably just going to go, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's part of the show. It's part of the experience. Yeah, the digital dissection experience.
And we're happy to have those 9. We're up 4 from the 5 we usually have. So
yeah,
Mark's home stories have been doing us wonders.
I see.
Yeah. So Nate's here to help us out because Nate and I had bonded over The Room, and specifically an experience that took place in a theater in Milwaukee, and I had only seen the bits and pieces of The Room up until this fateful event. And I guess, Nate, was that your first time viewing the whole thing, or had you seen it a couple of times?
No, actually, you told me about it, and so I went and found a bootleg copy online and watched it on the counter. And I was speechless after watching it because I couldn't, to try to grasp The Room, is that I've described this to people before. There are bad movies. You hear about something like Sharknado or something that are meant to be campy. And then you watch The Room, and the only way to describe it as somebody with no movie-making talent, ability, or experience gave it their all. I mean, they did everything they possibly could without any help, and it turned out like that. You can't make a movie like that because nobody would actually try. Nobody would fund something like that.
No, I mean, like, to credit Tommy Wiseau, like the movie definitely had all the elements you would want to have in a good movie. There's a splash of action. There's some intrigue there. There's betrayal. There's human emotion, and all of the elements are there. There's intense and very intense sex scenes, but again, like, the experience to know how to put all those things together into a cohesive story, that's what was missing. The passion was there.
It's the passion of Tennessee Williams.
Yes, the passion of Tennessee Williams, and really just the fact that Tommy Wiseau, yes, he did it wrong. I mean, there's aspects of filmmaking that he just obviously didn't know about, but belief is there, and I think that's the important element of this, is that there are people who make movies that don't care, that don't believe in them, and Tommy Wiseau did, and it just ended up this way. But I guess for those who haven't seen The Room, who wants to take a stab at explaining really just kind of the basic foundation? Because Joe, you mentioned some of the themes and what it includes, but who wants to just dip their toe into the story a little bit for us?
I'm going to say nose goes because I've only seen the movie once compared to you two. So I think a more seasoned viewer should handle this one.
I've seen it. I've screened it for others. I've actually been to the theater to see it. Alamo Drafthouse did it twice down here, where Tommy came down once, and Greg and Chris R were at the next one. So Dan Jinjin was at the second one. He actually directed me on stage during one of the performances. He had me come up and play Chris R, and he told me I was a bad actor. He said I just didn't. He didn't have. Well, what he wanted me to do is he wanted me to just grab this guy's neck and just wrench him. And so I don't know who this guy is. I don't want to get sued. And so I mean, the second go, the first time he did, he said that sucked. He said I did a terrible job. The second time, I mean, I really kicked that guy's ass. Like, I was sitting on a stage just bulldozing this guy, and he still told me I sucked at it. So I can only imagine, that he has a kind of an interesting idea of what acting is, because I know I sucked, but I didn't suck as bad as he said. So whatever good is to him, I don't know. But anyways, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just really quick, Janjin's actually the guy who plays Chris R. He's actually a motivational speaker outside of that one time chance encounter with Tommy Wiseau and being in that movie. But yeah, sorry, go ahead and walk us through a little bit here.
What's his motivational called? Giving it your R. Is that?
well, anyway. If you ever look at it though, it's stylized as Chris-R. Like it's not just.
Wait, so it's like Chriser?
It's Chris -R.
But why? What's the dash there for? That implies that R is
separation.
Okay.
You got to pronounce it. You can't change it. It's not an abbreviation. Because if it'd be like Chris.R, it's like it's dash. It's part of his name. So
Chris-R.
So to frame the room up, it's about a guy who he's a saint. This guy's a virtual saint. He helps people, little kids in his neighborhood, like Danny, that's actually really an adult. He's got a fiance that's just beautiful, Lisa, a blonde who loves red dresses that he will buy and flowers. And scotchkeys, and everything seems to be going his way. He's engaged. He's ready to move on. But then his woman starts having an affair with his friend, and I wouldn't call it an affair; just be cheating at this point. There's maybe loosely, it's a cheating with his best friend, Johnny.
Best friend, his best friend,
friend. Yeah, it's made very, very well aware that's his best friend. They mentioned that many, many times.
Yeah,
and so throughout the movie. That's basically the leading plot, is that she's a terrible woman behind his back. She's definitely thinks that she needs the whole world. And he eventually finds out about it. And should we spoil the ending, or is it?
Well, we'll eventually get there.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what's important to point out though, is that this is a pretty bold choice for a narrative, you know? I mean, no one has tried to do anything like this before.
Well, I mean, maybe not the same way, but like, I think again, like part of the reason why this movie is particularly hard for some to get through is that things seem to happen for the sake of happening and not for any good setup or reason. Even Juliet's falling out of love with Tommy Wiseau is basically just to move the story forward. She basically, her biggest excuse is that she's bored. She's like, oh no, he's boring now because he's too good. He's too nice.
He also hit her. I mean, you can't forget that.
That's true.
Yeah.
But also some would dispute that, Nate. Some would say he did not hit her.
He did not. But he did not. You know, one thing I did want to point out about this, okay, so many have mentioned that that Johnny never technically hit Lisa, but he does forcefully push her down on the couch, if you notice. I mean, to me, it's, if you want to call it hitting, I don't know, but I mean, it's still, it's abuse, guys. We can't just look past this. But either way, I mean, it's definitely, Nate and I have spent time talking about this before, where clearly Tommy Wiseau thought he had a banger. He thought he had something here that was Academy Award winning, and really ended up getting a room or a movie that was largely shot in a studio apartment for the most part. And for some reason, everyone passes through it like it's Grand Central Station. Like you need to be there for some godforsaken reason.
I mean, that's where people go to study, have sex, and just do whatever you want, despite the fact that you don't live there. You just go into this place.
It's the crash pad. I mean, having been to the house myself from the outside in San Francisco, I can tell you it's a pretty large space. So
yeah. Well, so what you're saying is, it's a large space, and his living room pretty much makes no sense because it's a room that has windows on all of the walls, right? So, I mean,
the house doesn't have windows because it's. Also, how do you get that mattress up a spiral staircase? There's some questions here that we haven't had answered.
Yep.
They come in pieces or something.
I mean, they're also the same neighborhood as the Tanner family, so everything.
I can tell you how far away. I went to the Tanner house. I know how far away it is from there.
So this is a good point to bring up. Just the setting of the room is a quandary in itself, because this is at best maybe like a 10 by 15 room. Right.
Yeah.
And they managed to get like 2 different couches in there, and then to get to the upstairs, because it's a 2-story apartment. Yes, you have a spiral staircase that
is your only way of getting upstairs.
It's about Lisa Wide too. It's about Lisa Wide.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't tilt or pivot that mattress to get it up the stairs. Unless he built it himself.
You never know. That could be one of his many talents. He's a banker. He's a nice guy. He's a philanthropist, and he's a whittler. He will make anything for you.
What shouldn't be missed in this plot, though, is he really does want to dive deep into a couple of areas that were serious issues at the early 2000s: drug use, cancer, falling in the streets.
Even if we don't return to them ever again,
no,
they are brought up. They are brought up.
It's reminiscent of like a play that a child would write, where they don't really know how to flesh everything out, but they know it's important and it should be in there. So,
it reminds me of the line from Waiting, where actually the same actor that played Donnie Astricky from Gone in 60 Seconds, he goes, "Think of everything you learned in life, and just focus on that for a minute. Now think about it if you went through it blind." And I'm like, that kind of feels like if Tommy was blind his entire life and then decided to write something, this is what we ended up getting, because it's completely disconnected. None of like the pacing is completely off balance the entire time. And I guess to point out his fiance, the love of his life, Lisa, she can't seem to make up her mind as to what she wants at any point in this movie.
No, she does. She says she wants it all. She says she wants it all. So
she wants it all with Mark, played by the.
She doesn't say that it's necessarily with Mark. She just says she wants it all, and so really she's no different than a lot of women that really want to take on the world. And
or she just sounds like a Queen song, and that's and she wants it all, and she wants it now.
She wants it right now.
I mean, it's I think one of the most confusing aspects of this movie, and Joe, you might agree after your first viewing, and I can actually confirm this, is the relationship between Lisa and her mother, who is, they're trying to set her up as, the helpful mom and someone who's trying to just help her daughter make the right decisions in life. But she doesn't even really have it fully together, does she, guys?
No, she doesn't, because it turns out that she didn't really love her husband, and I'm trying again. I've only seen the one time, so isn't that like she left her husband?
No, he was a hateful man.
Hateful man. Okay, that's what it was.
So glad that she divorced him. Yeah,
very glad she divorced him. And the only reason you should ever get in a relationship with anyone anyway is just for financial stability.
You know what? That's one of the smartest. Exactly. That was one of the smartest lines of that entire movie.
Don't do it for love. Do it for financial stability.
Love has nothing to do with marriage.
No, and don't you have you have one of Lisa's friends saying how your mom's a bitch and she's horrible? And to that point, you're like, well, wait a second. Actually, the mom's been really helpful since we started. Eventually, we see mom turns out oh, your father is terrible and I hate him and I'm happy I divorced him and you should just marry this man for his money and because he's kind of nice to you. So you just get a bunch of mixed signals from this entire cast over what the fuck is going on with this mom and her relationship with Lisa.
Earlier in the movie, though, she says that he provides for you and he clearly loves you and that he's a great man to be with. And then after we find out about this twist, this cancer twist that she finds out, she definitely has breast cancer after she gets the test results.
Definitely has breast cancer. No.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is when you start pulling on that thread about marriage. It's after that diagnosis. Do we think that maybe the breast cancer has something to do with this change of heart after her earlier praise of Johnny?
Yeah. When I looked at it in retrospective, applying my real life experience, the real truth is that you can never expect someone to be grateful. That's actually a good piece of real advice, because you could do everything in the world for somebody and expect them to do something for you, and they're going to stab you in the back. It happens. You don't white knight that far, and he did, and he made a mistake.
And that's life.
It's life.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess like even like looking at that conversation where you have the mother reveals that she has breast cancer, the fact that Lisa clearly doesn't give a fuck. She's like, Mom, they cure things all the time. Don't worry about it. We should worry about how I want everything right now. Fuck off, Mom. You and your problems.
Well, the computer cells just aren't where they want to be right now. So she's finding other things in life to do.
Yes, that's right. The computer boom of 2002 that we were all present for
clearly ended.
Yeah. Those e-machines aren't selling, so never obsolete.
Well, I did want to focus a little bit here about just the love story that does unfold, because it seems like, you know, Johnny is obviously completely lost in this. He doesn't understand anything going on. But the love story between Johnny and the city of San Francisco, I think, is worth analyzing for a little bit here, because San Francisco is prominently displayed throughout this entire film. We get many beautiful, gorgeous shots of the Golden Gate Bridge.
We traverse it.
Some do. Only one of them actually goes all the way across. The other one stops midway, and it usually disappoints the entire fandom present, because at every get together we've been at, they start cheering as it moves across, and then if it stops, they're all bummed out. Just couldn't fit. There was so much content in that movie that they couldn't fit in another 3 more seconds of spanning the bridge. You know, they had to cut it off there to put in more important stuff.
Maybe if we'd gotten a large hot chocolate, we'd have energy to make it all the way across the Golden Gate Bridge more than once.
That's right. The chosen drink of Johnny is the medium hot chocolate, not the large, not the small, not the venti, none of that bullshit. It is just the medium chocolate.
And he doesn't pay for it, if you notice that. Nobody pays for anything at this place. It's a charity coffee shop
and cheesecake factory too, because fucking they're giving away cheesecake. Like, where's this place in Wisconsin giving away cheese?
Living in Star Trek over there. Everything's free.
Yeah. Well, and it's this exchange between what Tommy Wiseau thinks happens, I guess, between an NPC and a customer. You know, this one of the most confusing exchanges in this entire film is when he walks into the flower shop.
Oh my God.
And here you go. You have this guy who looks like a modern day, you know, vampire come into your flower shop. And then the florist acts like she doesn't even recognize him. I mean,
but he is her best customer.
It's so confusing.
It's so disjointed. Yeah.
He's wearing like a black trench coat or something. I mean, he's
sunglasses the whole time he's in there. Yeah.
You got chains all over, all over his waist, yeah.
Giving a little bit of it away, like we spent, me and my wife spent our honeymoon in San Francisco, and so some of it was just by default, like you're driving, you're riding around on the train, on the bus, the train. You go by some of these places. I mean, like the flower shop, which has changed. Some of the other ones you have to kind of work to get to, like the stairs they were running at when they went to go throw the football around towards the end of the movie. Yeah, we walked right by it and we're like, hey, wait on a second, this looks familiar to me. And I was having like a moment. Or there's the other one that's near that. I forget what the monument is, but it looks like these grand, like almost like pavilions made out of. I forget what that building is called. I think it's like an observatory or something. He walks right by that. He walks right through different parts of the wharf. Obviously, the house. The house is actually in a pretty nice neighborhood. But you could tell from the movie that he definitely has. I mean, this is a serious sense. He actually had a very strong passion for San Francisco, and his mark is still on those. I've heard rumors like about what his involvement is down like near the wharf, like what his actual Tommy Wiseau's line of business is. And I told Mark this, and I think he might ask Greg about it. But I mean, he still has quite a few buildings that he owns there. I'm pretty sure. I know he owns at least one. I mean, yeah, it's like right down the street from a Starbucks, and there's just this. You come out of there, and all of you see is this gigantic. It looks like a light up sign or something. It looks like a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I said, hold on a second. There's this big picture of the room behind it. And I remember turning to I'm like going, hey, you think there's a chance that's his building? And you look up there and all you see on the second floor is like boxes and boxes and boxes of something. And it's like, years later, I mean, when he came down here, I just went up to him and was like,
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, hey, I was in San Francisco. Is that building with the jeans and the poster? Is that yours? What's in there anyways? And he says, no, that's not my building. And then like, no sooner than like a second and a half later, as I'm walking away, he pulls me over and goes, yeah, it's mine. And like,
it sounds like such a like perfect Tommy thing to do.
Yeah, it was like
perfect Tommy thing.
You couldn't just tell me the first time. You had to deny me once.
Oh yeah,
and then come back at it. And it's like,
but it builds the drama up again.
Like,
he's a master.
Which is what I think is hilarious. Is that, I mean, for as splintered and as disjointed as this film is, it is Tommy's stamp for sure. And I mean, even from day one, the moment that guy touched American soil, this persona began, this deception began, this whole presentation of his began, because you know, he tells Greg Sestero, of course, in their fateful meeting, that he's 20 years old, and this man looks like no 20-year-old that anyone has ever seen, of course. And later find out, I mean, the guy was in his late 40s when he makes The Room in 2002. And yeah, so I mean, it is there's a lot of questions behind that part of it, the financing of this movie, and you know, how it all came together. And some people do think it's counterfeit jeans, some think it's, you know, plush doggies like the one you saw in the floral shop, you know.
I heard rumors he actually sells merchandise to people, like the touristy stuff, like down on the wharf. If you go down there, I mean, there's, you know, little booths up and down the streets around there selling I Love San Francisco shirts. I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting a cut of that.
I mean,
every $5 shirt, I'm sure he knows. I mean, the guy's, you know, like I said, he made his stamp on the industry, whether it was positive or negative. I'll say it that much. And I think he's made the most of what The Room has become. Honestly, I think you hit the paramount of it with the Disaster Artist and all that. You're never going to get more. I mean, that was really bringing it into the mainstream for everybody. But
yeah,
there's a love for it because of that. It's just, I understand it's not what most people would consider to be, but if you think about a lot of the movies that people really, really like, and they're kind of controversial with his, I think people all enjoy it. They just don't enjoy it for the reason I think he wanted.
Yeah. So, well, and I mean, even looking at like the Disaster Artist, where you have Tommy Wiseau actually interacting with James Franco playing Tommy Wiseau, like Wiseau's actually acting there, and what you see, like, he's gotten better. Like, clearly, yeah, like this was his first real go at something in The Room, but yeah, no, he's getting better. Like, he I actually thought like his exchange that he had with Franco was actually pretty funny. Because there was like like a Hollywood party or something they were at, where Wiseau was there, and then whoever Wiseau was playing as just a random person that was there. Like, that was actually, I laughed at that. That was really good.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead.
He's starting to know, like, I think he's known over time, like, where he can be good. And so, like, he's working within his limitations and his skill level, and he's producing things, at least he knows who his fan base is, and producing things that they will potentially enjoy.
And I think that's the important aspect of this, is that even if Tommy didn't quite understand how to make a film, and he didn't quite understand what they were doing, he always seemed to figure out and understand fans and how to be a fan pleaser. Like, we've tongue-in-cheek talked about The Room just to introduce people to it who didn't know about it, right? Because we're, like, as we mentioned, this is kind of a precursor to talking to Greg Sestero. But for Tommy Wiseau in The Room, as you've mentioned, the layers of success that they've had with this ties into the fact that the guy loves his fans, and we're not just talking about it when the cameras are rolling. I mean, he truly adores his fans, and that's why he has taken this movie on the road now for, you know, the better part of 18 years. And people show up to it and they love it. I think it's worth mentioning, Nate, what that experience is like, because if you haven't gone to one of the showings on the Love is Blind tour, which is what Tommy called it, Nate, what is the Love is Blind tour? Do you want to walk us through that?
Well, it almost always features him, but he may also be able to drag some of his. It's usually probably Greg, but he's sometimes, depending on where he's at, because I mean, like the actress that played Lisa, Juliet, and I think
Daniel.
Right. She lives down in San Antonio. I know she's moved since that time. I know she for a while lived in San Antonio. She may still be there. And of course, like I said, Dan's over here in town here, and so they'll come up and do the show too if they're around and they can. But what it really is, I mean, it's pure fan love. When you go to like a comic convention or anything like that, if you've ever been to one, you know, the fans, you know, they're very, very passionate about it. And it's weird because you'd think, you know, how could this possibly produce this kind of interest? And then you see the line out the front, people are cheering, people have got merchandise for him to sell. And, you know, he meets with every fan. And he's not like the kind of guy that's, you know, sitting behind a table and just signing stuff. The guy's right up there with you, putting his arm around you. He's everybody's friend. He wants to make sure you're enjoying the experience. And the weirdest part is he doesn't actually sit in there during the movie. He doesn't like, he's not going to make any commentary. He leaves for a while. He may leave for the entire thing. I think for one of it, he was there. He left before the show was over, but he's there just long enough and to get everyone interested, and then takes off. I think it's just, but he meets with everybody in there. That when he came down here and did it, there was like a little bit of a pre-session where I think the Alamo Drafthouse people got him to do a little bit more special crowd involvement. That's how I got taken up on stage. I don't know if I tried to volunteer or if I was like one of those, hey, can we get a volunteer? And I just kind of like had my hand kind of half raised and I got drawn up on stage. But it was a blast. I mean, people during the actual movie, there's moments in there that once you've gone once, you know what to say and what to do. Like every time that Lisa goes up and down the stairs, everyone's like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Because there's another scene in there where she's like eating like a ton of food. Like she's like just ripping like all this food out of a grocery bag.
Well, so, there's that. And then the part that I got really like just completely thrown off by was every time there's photos of spoons framed throughout the apartment. Every time that you see one of these, everyone in the crowd knew. They shouted out spoons, and then they all had plastic spoons they're throwing up into the air.
Oh my God.
like rice after a wedding. And you and I are just sitting there like looking at each other like, what the fuck is going on here?
You pick spoons up off the floor by like the second or third time you see it. Like you get involved. Or when the footballs get thrown around, people just jump up out of the crowd and start throwing footballs between each other. In the aisles.
Strangers are throwing a football halfway across the theater to each other. And then, as we mentioned, the Golden Gate Bridge. Every time that it scrolls across it, like Nate mentioned, people are going, go, 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 go. And then if it doesn't make it all the way, it's like, oh. and the thing is, the part that I was always wondering about is like people are genuinely enjoying themselves, even though it may seem like they're making fun of it. Like there is a ton of entertainment value in this community that exists within a film that most people don't know about, and that's what it kind of took Nate and I by surprise. When we left that theater, Nate, I remember my face was hurting, my stomach was hurting. I was laughing so hard for almost 2 hours that like I just couldn't believe that existed. And so I think that's what Tommy's really latched onto is that, people may not love it for, the reasons that they typically love, like an Academy Award winning film. But I mean, the entertainment value is off the charts.
Yeah. I mean, I thought walking into it, I thought, oh, hey, I found this really, odd movie that I love in a particular way. And when I go to see it in person, the passion in that fan base was far more than I ever expected. Just because I've never been part of really a film fandom. I mean, you could go to like Star Wars and those people dress up and get nutty. But for something like this, you're just wondering like, how far will people go for a film like this? And people will go 2 hours, 3 hours to go to a screening. Sometimes even if he's not even there, like just because they're doing something, because they want to see it. It's meant to be enjoyed in a theater environment. It's definitely like, and it's meant to be enjoyed with crowd involvement. And I don't think he designed the movie that way. That's just how it ended up. But it's really the only way to watch it. So if you haven't gone to a theater, one of these showings, I would encourage it simply because we enjoyed it that much more with all that. Well, everyone involved, screaming at it. It was just a blast.
Which is interesting. Like, how do we think the movie even got to this phase? Because like, as someone who I love watching like really campy, crappy movies, and I love laughing at them. I love looking at think of like how do they come to decisions to like do what they did with this movie. And clearly you had this movie that Tommy, like when it premiered, he drove around the block like what 5-6 times because he didn't see a line. And then when it didn't turn out the way he wanted to, he was upset. And now, like, it's a blast to go and see this movie. Like, how did we go from a screening that flopped to people lined up to it to basically have a party every time they watch it?
Well, I mean, it's like Viagra. I mean, Viagra was meant to be a heart medication, and when people found out it worked well doing something else, they pivoted. He's a master salesman. He's been doing it his entire life. So,
well, I think yes, that is absolutely the part of this that I think people need to realize. For the people that make fun of Tommy Wiseau for just this movie, they need to take a step back and realize that his tenacity and the fact that he does things that most people would overthink, that's what makes him successful. Not just as a businessman or the fact that he was somehow able to put a movie together like that. Like, he's not hindered by the things that would hinder most people. Now, to answer your question about how this movie gets to where it is now, Joe, it's this grassroots approach. And I think there's a couple of layers to this. So it's the grassroots approach of taking this to individual cities and doing what Tommy does, where he sits there, and Nate wasn't joking. He meets with every single fan before the movie starts. So you don't always know when the movie's actually going to begin, because he will get through every single signature every single time.
Wow.
So that's one big aspect of this. Now, two, we have lived throughout our time praising and celebrating awesomely bad things. You know, I mean, that's true. And this is also something that mirrors the same element of what Tommy does. You take something where you have like small groups of people that appreciate these things, and then you do it on a world scale. They're not just doing it in the US. I mean, Greg Sestero has mentioned the crowds in London that will show up for this stuff. I mean, that's why it can't just be one factor. It's multiple. But I mean, yeah.
How many times do you get to see something that's its own unique phenomena, and then you get to meet the people involved behind it? Because if this were just like some lowbrow, like garbage movie or something, then nobody would really care. I mean, the only great analog to this that I can think of would be like Kevin Smith. He goes out and makes a movie on his own. It actually ends up being good, but because he's a good filmmaker. But he's very fan involved. He shows. I mean, he's done a pop-up restaurant in town. He shows up to that. People like that they can have a little bit of access. The people behind the movie get to know him a little bit better. With Tommy, other than his private life, like, he doesn't tell anything about that. But
no.
But I'm just saying, like, if he's accessible to fans who just want to like go up, shake his hand, talk to him for a few minutes, and experience his unique aura, which is very unique. His two belts, of course. I don't know if I told you that story at all. Like,
no, two belts.
Somebody asked him why he wears two belts, and he says, one's to keep his pants up, and one is like underneath his butt, just because he likes the way it feels. Because he wore that when he came to see us. He was like this two belts thing going on.
Yeah,
it's like
interesting.
I mean, maybe it is good. Maybe I need to try it. I don't know.
Maybe it helps with posture. Yeah, a little extra support to tighten things up.
Yeah,
he's onto something that we just don't know.
I don't know.
It's the saddest part, though. I mean, you see him now; he actually is getting older, which is. So I want this guy making more stuff. Yeah.
It's true. He. I mean, from most estimates, the guy has to be either in his 70s or right at the lip. I mean, he's definitely getting up there in age. Although we have on good authority that the guy still does kettlebell workouts, because
I believe it.
We found out, Nate, that Greg and Tommy still talk every single day, to the point where it made Greg late to our interview with him. Because he was talking to Tommy just before we had our call.
He didn't ask. So you didn't like ask him like, "Hey, do you think Tommy would like?" Like, he didn't like ask Tommy if he wanted to come along or something. You didn't. You're not interested.
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, so here's the difference. Okay, so we obviously are celebrating Greg Sestero this week, but his thing is that Greg is still he's writing. Obviously, you know about that, the Disaster Artist, but he wrote the film Best Friends that him and Tommy technically reunited in 2018, and he's also doing press for his upcoming film Miracle Valley, which comes out next year. So Greg is still obviously working and and very active in what he does. So if I had to ask the question of what was Tommy doing on that day that prevented him from being there, well, I mean, who knows what the hell Tommy Wiseau is doing on any given day. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a good question that we probably should have asked Greg. You know, it's like, hey, was Tommy interested in enjoying? Because clearly he was available if he was talking to him to the point where he was late for our call.
Little secret about Tommy though is that a while back I became more of a fan of the room, and I'm trying to figure out, like, is there a contact number for him? Yeah. And I called, I don't know which number I called for him. It just went to his cell phone. It was legit number, like Tommy's cell phone. And it wasn't like the voicemail box was full. Like, you could leave a message for him if you wanted to back then. Yeah. This is like probably like 10, 12 years ago. I was like, that couldn't have been real. Like, that can't really have been his number. But sure enough.
And I think that's why the billboard did come down at one point, right? Because, I mean, for a long time, he wasn't getting phone calls probably that often. I mean, it was just I mean, for the locals, I'm sure they just like, yep, that's Tommy Wiseau. He's that weird dude. And then suddenly, after this grassroots campaign, he's an international celebrity. So I think the larger point here, though, is that yes, this is a film that we started off with, most of us looking at it and going, what the hell is this? You know, is this so bad that I can't look away? Because I don't think this is a train wreck. I think this is like a spaceship wreck. Okay, like that's more of the idea for me, is it's a high stakes train wreck, whatever you want to call it. And over time, I think it was just the acceptance of maybe the folks involved with it too. Because I mean, many people involved said they hoped it would, or they thought they would never see the light of day. And clearly that didn't happen.
I mean, and that's, as I don't know, like, as horrible as it could sound, that like they didn't think I'd ever see the light of day. I mean, that's how many independent movies get made, never really see the light of day. They don't make it past 1 or 2 screenings at a small theater, or they just never even make it that far. So I don't know, like, I don't want to say, like, I don't think it's necessarily fair to pin it on like this was a disaster of a movie, and that's probably like it would never see the light of day. But I mean, I think any independent movie has a very good shot of never being seen anywhere, let alone something like this.
I don't know if this is something you guys asked him about, but did he really describe how it went from, obviously box office flop. Okay, premiere was a flop, and then how what the bridge was like. What was the first showing, like after, like the first like nightly showing that he did? Like, how did it build up into this thing? I don't know if that's something Greg knew about.
So because we just lightly kind of talked about it, because we obviously wanted to focus on his projects and like post room life, but I mean, it was just one city at a time. I mean, that's how this movie became more than just a random trailer that somebody cracked up about, because that's how I remember seeing it the first time. Somebody just, the trailer surfaced roughly about, I think, like 6 years after the film actually came out. And that's what they started doing. It was just one city at a time. Suddenly one more group of like 100 people sees it and goes, what the hell just happened to me? And think about how many bad films you've seen that you can't remember, but you've seen this one, and it's like, yes, it's bad, but I was mesmerized by how bad it was.
I'm still in awe of how a grown man has no idea what sound a chicken makes. cheep. Like that, it doesn't make that sound after it's done being like an infant.
Let alone spending $5 million to do it.
Yeah.
Well, at least he had the foresight to record it in HD also. Like, he
is visionary.
Spared no expense.
Yeah, he spared no expense. Well, he bought the cameras instead of renting them. So
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. He said it was cheap. What? Didn't it turn out like it was cheaper and just buy the cameras instead of renting them?
No, the truth was here, Wiseau was Nolan before Christopher Nolan. I mean, Christopher Nolan started doing that, and people called him a madman. But before he did it, Tommy Wiseau was doing it. So, if anything, he's a visionary from that side of it.
From a pocketbook standpoint.
What's also crazy is he filmed probably many times. There's got to be some lost footage somewhere of more stuff about the room that wasn't added in there. Like he's probably got another DVD's worth of cut material that I'd love to see.
I mean, I mean, we all know he recorded every single day on set. You know, granted, he didn't record it on like a tiny little tape that could only store about 20 minutes on it, like he does in the film. But
that tape lasted for days, so don't.
Yeah, I record everything. Yeah, he recorded every single day on set, and to the point where he provided that to the Franco brothers to help prepare for the movie. In which point they said this was instrumental in us being able to get into the headspace since James Franco is a method actor.
Because like, didn't he like have like the actual camera crew for recording the room, and then didn't he hire a second crew to like record everything?
The making of, the making of.
Yeah.
Yes, the making of. Yeah. I mean, just incredible what's going through this guy's mind. But I guess is some parting thoughts, because I mean, I've long straddled this line between, like I mentioned, I was laughing at Tommy Wiseau in the beginning, but that is not what I'm doing anymore. I mean, I can talk about stuff tongue in cheek, but I absolutely can appreciate this unstoppable force that is Tommy Wiseau. And it's in every aspect of what the guy does in life. He is unstoppable, and so I guess your guys' thoughts on this film and the legacy. And Tommy, I mean, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I'm still, fresh off my heels of watching it for the first time. So I'm just in awe of what it's done. Like how even making a movie is difficult to do in the first place. And this guy pulls it off independently, completely 100% on his own. And then it completely bombs and flops, and he manages to turn it into something he's profited off of. And not only he's profiting off of it, but like it's memorable. Like it's become a part of like an American and really global subculture. Is just unfathomable to me that he's been able to do this. So I'm awestruck and to the point of being baffled with what Tommy Wiseau's done.
For me, it's one of those things that someone said, Nate, you're going to take 30 movies with you to a desert island. That's all you get. If it was down to like this and any number of those 90s forgettable sort of like dramas and things like, oh man, take English Patient or something, I'm going to take The Room. And the reason for that is that it was, we call it a failure necessary. Failure of writing, failure of acting, failure of directing, and all these different ways. And yet it managed to come out to be something that people enjoyed anyways. Because when you go to a movie, you expect a certain quality to it. And this one didn't have any of those things. But the guy did complete it. It's that kid that got the project. He still gets the D-.
Yeah.
But he said some really interesting stuff in there too. He was creative in that way. It's innovative. It's like no other movie you will watch. And to say it's not honest to say that it's bad. It's enjoyable because you want to know more about it. You're curious as to why it was made this way. And the biggest part of it is that getting in the head of someone that would make a movie like this, you kind of understand he's got a very black and white idea of what the world really is. Love and hate. There's no gray. This movie has no gray whatsoever. He's either your friend or he's betraying him. The whole movie's like that. You're either good or you're bad. I mean, there's no, obviously Chris R is bad. I mean, he's a comic book villain.
Yeah.
But Johnny, on the other hand, that guy's an absolute saint.
Yeah.
And it's, so he knew what the elements of stories were. It's like someone that overheard it through a wall and tried to make a movie based on a story somebody else told but missed everything. They just caught some of the big points of it and said, I know enough to make a movie. And there you go. He put $5 million into that.
Yeah.
And so we can all appreciate his interesting effort.
I think it's like a weird, like real life Galaxy Quest where the aliens who've been watching the movie of everything and thought it was real. And so they took this campy thing and made a real spaceship with it. That's what Tommy Wiseau's done with The Room. He overheard what to do to make a movie. He made the movie, and over periods of time, he's actually built the damn spaceship.
Well, I'm sure he was told in his acting classes, this is what a good movie has.
Yeah.
And he didn't really know what a good movie had. He just kind of heard about it a little bit and had some of the parts of it. He kind of, a broad overview.
Yeah.
Well, I think at the base of it, the way I started to view this was, think about the immigrant dream, right? Like you've seen it in other films, you've seen it in told across history that, people see America as a land of opportunity and they come here and they make a life for themselves. And Tommy Wiseau has managed to do that, not just with his business, but also with this film. And so that's how I started to look at it too. The longer that I spent with it was that this was obviously his dream, and he was able to take his dream this far. I mean, it's incredible that he's been able to achieve what he has with it. And I can only imagine he's made back his money and his investment at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
And he worked very hard to do it. I'll put that much, because he took a flop and then turned it into something that could be merchandised.
Yeah.
Hell of a marketer.